They replaced the first plank when I was 8 years old. Standing in an alley that smelled like rain and copper and the particular silence that follows a gunshot, something was removed from me that night. A plank. A foundational piece of whatever ship I was supposed to become. And in its place they inserted something else. Something harder. Something that didn't have a name yet. I didn't know then that it was the first replacement of many. The second plank went when I left Gotham. When Bruce Wayne, whoever that was, stepped onto a plane with nothing but money and rage and a question he didn't know how to ask yet. How do you fight a world that produces monsters? You become something the monsters are afraid of. Another plank removed. Another one inserted. Darker grain. Denser wood. Then came the training. The broken bones in the mountains of North Africa. The discipline in the monasteries. The cold of Siberia teaching my nervous system to stop registering pain as information worth panicking over. Each season another plank. Each scar a replacement. Each lesson the removal of something soft and the installation of something engineered. By the time I put on the cape, I had already asked the question without knowing I was asking it. How many planks can you replace before the ship is no longer the ship? The philosophers called it the Ship of Theseus. A paradox so elegant it has survived 3,000 years because no one has successfully answered it. If you replace every single component of a ship, every plank, every nail, every rope, is it still the same ship? Or is it a different vessel wearing the memory of the original like a borrowed name? I used to think the answer didn't apply to me. I was wrong. I count sometimes. In the cave. Between the files and the protocols and the contingency plans for gods I haven't met yet. I count what remains of the original ship. The boy on the pavement. The boy who watched two people who loved him exit the world through two small holes in the dark. What is left of him? The answer changes depending on the night. On good nights I think the grief is original. That the grief has never been replaced, only compressed, stored, redistributed across decades of purpose. That somewhere inside the armor and the contingency plans and the cold voice that catalogs threat levels there is still an 8-year-old boy who simply never stopped loving his parents. And that love became this. Became the cave. Became the files. Became the standing between the city and whatever descends on it next. On those nights the ship feels continuous. Feels like the same vessel that launched from Crime Alley 30 years ago. Older. Scarred. Every plank weathered to something almost unrecognizable. But the same ship. Then there are the other nights. The nights when I sit in front of the back computer and I watch Bruce Wayne's face on a monitor, at a gala in a boardroom laughing at something someone said, and I do not recognize him. Not as performance. Not as mask. As stranger. As a plank so thoroughly replaced that the wood doesn't even remember what tree it came from. Those nights the question becomes heavier. Because if Bruce Wayne is the performance, if he is the replacement plank installed to give the mission a face the world would accept, then who is wearing the cowl? What is the original material underneath all the engineering? Is there a continuous self that survived every replacement? Or did the last fragment of the original ship burn away somewhere quiet? Somewhere between the sixth broken bone and the first time I made a contingency plan for a man I called a friend? Aristotle said the ship is defined by its form, its function, not its matter. I want to believe that. I want to believe that what makes me continuous, what makes me the same entity that stood in that alley, is not the material of Bruce Wayne or the architecture of Batman, but the function, the purpose, the unbending refusal to let what happened to me happen to someone else in a city that has never once made it easy to love it. Form over matter, purpose over composition. The mission is the ship. But then Locke answers from the other side of history and says identity is memory. That the self is the thread of conscious recollection connecting each moment to the last. And I remember everything. Every replacement. Every plank removed. Every piece of softness extracted and replaced with something that serves the mission better. I remember all of it. Which means either I am still here, continuous through the memory of every transformation, or I am simply a very detailed record of a person who no longer exists. I don't know which answer frightens me more. What I know is this. Every night I descend into this cave and I become something the darkness recognizes as one of its own. And every night Gotham survives a little longer because something in this cave refused to stop. Refused to rest. Refused to accept that the world couldn't be held together by one man's will if that will was disciplined enough. Maybe that is the answer the paradox never considered. Maybe the Ship of Theseus is the wrong question when the ship never had the luxury of staying in harbor long enough to ask it. Maybe the question isn't what remains of Bruce Wayne. Maybe the question is what Gotham would look like if I had spent 30 years trying to preserve him instead of replacing him with something that could actually protect it. I'm not the ship I was. I'm not sure I was ever meant to be. The mission continues. That is the only plank that has never been replaced. And some nights, the very darkest ones, I wonder if that makes it the only one that was ever real.